So it's impossible to give you a straight line from point A to point Pluto, where we are right now in terms of this election, but we're going to try to give our best detail of the process, trying to shine a light on the lack of process that is the time between election night and today. And one of the things I want to start with is the recount, the independent investigation, everything that's led up to even the newest revelation that we have new votes that somehow were found in a box somewhere, and now we're supposed to do something.
In a closet.
In a closet. So
that's ironic to me.
So I'll let you run with that. Tell us about the recount for one thing.
Well, I've not been the person at Mudflats who's really been heavily into election politics. That's more been Gene and Shannon. Mm-hmm. But I got a phone call at 5:30 on election night from my husband saying, I'm down here at Hanshu, which is our precinct, and they've run out of ballots.
At 5:30?
At 5:30.
Right.
And I said, you're kidding. And so then I got a call back from him at 6 that said, they have some ballots, I'm voting, but I'm upset because they only brought 50 ballots. He goes, so I think that I'm going to be the last person down here voting, among the last people voting with a real ballot at that point. And a number of things happened with neighbors who knew that, what I did at Mudflats and my activism kind of thing, and so they wanted to talk to me about their experience. People of all walks of life, all political standpoints, were furious, upset, all of that, and then I became extremely energized. And we were reporting on this for Mudflats, but a few weeks into it, I got a phone call from a lawyer, a friend of mine, Joe McKinnon, and he was involved in something else, but he said, I think that we only have a couple of days to do anything at all about this election. And what he meant was the Election Commission had already put their report out. And once the Election Commission's report goes out, their final report goes out, then you only have 5 days to initiate any kind of retaliation according to Title 28, whether it is challenging the election or asking for a recount. Now, challenging the election would entail being able to actually prove that there was malfeasance during the election.
In 5 days.
In 5 days, which means you would have to have access to all of the materials and be able to look at them and analyze them to be able to figure out that there was malfeasance. And even though records requests and all of that had been put in, no one had even tried to fill them by that point. So Joe and I just talked, and the only real possibility that we had was to do a recount. Now, according to Title 28, you can do 10 qualified voters, 10, can initiate a recount, and you have to pay $100 per precinct.
Out of your own pocket.
Out of your own pocket. So we had to figure out how many precincts we could afford. So thanks to the people who signed up to be the 10 qualified voters, and Mel was one of them, and several other people who made some contributions, we ended up being able to recount 15 precincts for $1,500. That's correct. And then at that point, they also determined one of the things you have to do is 2 of the people from that group have to say that they're going to be there to observe the recount at all times.
Amen.
So Mel and I signed up for that, sure. I did the schedule, and I made sure that we had people covering all of it.
And how long did that process, the actual counting of the 15 precincts?
About a week and a half, about.
I think I took 3 days off from work the first week, and then another the following week, and then partway through the week another couple of half days or something like that.
Because I was there, I was the main one there for the last couple.
Vacation.
Yeah, I know, that's how Mel spent her vacation. The beauty is that we had people volunteer to do this observing of the recount. And they haven't stopped. They've continued to do research. And I mean, Mel put in huge work in tracking everything that was going on every single day, entering it into a giant database to compare to what was going, the recount to the AccuVote that came out. And people were videoing. We have we have hours of video. We have, all kinds of things. And I believe that what happened was not something that the assembly or the administration expected, which was we got a lot of information out of this that, as to exactly how incompetent the entire election process for the city really was.
I'm lost. Help me out. When you say incompetent, how many times has the team that put on the April 3rd election ran elections?
The person who was in charge, which was Jacqueline Duke, this was the second election that she actually...
No, it was her third.
So this was not her first rodeo?
This was not her first rodeo, no. And so you can look at it and say, why was this one different?
Right.
You can ask that, and then they give you a number of answers. One thing they said, this was her first mayoral election that she did, and so they will give you that as information. But there were so many levels of incompetence through this whole thing that it's amazing that they've ever pulled it off before, and it makes you wonder about some of the past results.
And it does make you wonder in terms of, I remember in 2008 there were reports of different precincts that were over reporting.
You're talking the state election.
Yes.
So this is the difference between the municipality election and the state
election.
It's smaller.
But it does make me wonder in terms of how systemic this is.
Oh, sure.
And especially in terms of, you have so many people saying, oh, it's not like it would change the results anyway, we should just move on. And I'm sitting looking at 2012 coming around the corner with our entire state legislature save one seat up. It seems like if you're not going to look at this now, at least on a local level, you're begging for this to be dwarfed.
Well, and my response to people when they say that there isn't enough here to have changed the election, well, perhaps there wasn't enough with just the shortage of the ballots, but when you add all the levels of things that we learned, when you add them all together, you have to say, well, maybe you can't point to this one thing, but when you look at the whole thing, really, you don't think that there's enough there?
Right, and we have to run to a break, but we're going to get back to that because that's a really important point that I want to elaborate on in terms of responding to a lot of the claims that we need to just move on or just prepare for the next time instead of deal with what we just got through or are still getting through as this continues. So we'll be right back.